My next guest is the man behind MMA Gold. He is the head coach there. Of course, I'm talking about Jim West, who's joining me here on the program. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing very well, James. How are you guys?
I'm doing awesome. I appreciate you taking the time. Now, I see you're in the car. Did practice just finish up, or where are you heading to right now?
Nope, I'm actually going to grab some lunch.
Okay. Well, I don't want to keep you too long from the lunch. I know that's important.
No problem.
Got to fuel up the body. But first time I've had you on the show, and we've met before in Vegas. I believe it was last year when Aspen had her last fight. But I don't really know too much about your backstory. So where did this all begin for you? How did you get involved in combat sports?
Well, out of college, I got into law enforcement, and I was a deputy for quite a while. And through that, I kind of started dabbling in some of the arts through law enforcement, through the academy and things. And I had some friends that were training jiu-jitsu and different things. At the time, we're talking back in about 01, 02, and they were training at a gym in close to where I live. And it was with James Irvin and Scott Smith and all those guys. They had a gym called Ultimate Training Center. And so I went in there, trained a little bit and loved it. And then it just kind of progressed from there. And then in 2005, I had a guy who was opening up a gym. His name was Robert Barge. He opened up a gym about 30 minutes away from where I lived called Overcome MMA and Boxing. And he had approached me and said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to open this gym. Would you be interested in teaching at the gym?" And I said, "I never even thought about it, but yeah, this sounds like a great idea." And that's kind of where it all started. But like I said, I kind of started dabbling into some of the arts back in about 01, 02, and then it kind of just progressed from there. And then in 2011, I would say, I met Dave Hirschbein, who manages and kind of owns MMA Gold and manages all the fighters out of there. And he approached me and said, "Hey, what do you think about creating a partnership, basically?" And at the time, Overcome was the gym itself, and the owner was thinking about moving into different directions. And we moved in 2013 into a new location, and then we basically made the team MMA Gold instead of Overcome MMA, which I started, like I said, back in about 05. So that's kind of the long and short, kind of how it transpired. And then since 2013, we've been known as MMA Gold, and Dave and I kind of continue to build it from there and add pieces to the puzzle with coaching and management and different sponsors and different things like that. And we kind of just continue to progress every day. Kind of like MMA Gold's kind of like the little engine that could. We started and didn't really know anyone in the sport. I knew a few people here and there, but back in the early 2000s, MMA was still, it's still really a fledgling sport compared to all the other major sports. But back then it was really new. So we really didn't have a lot of connections per se. And we just kind of put it together, and we just stayed persistent with it and started getting more and more fighters in. In fact, Andre Feely used to train.
I remember that. Yeah, I was actually going to bring him up because I know he was one of the early members, and it's so cool to see how a lot of the fighters now that I know started there are now sort of household names as some of the people, even current fighters that are there.
And, at that time, I understood, why Andre left. He had to make a decision. That was at the time when we were just starting. I was still trying to figure out everything and kind of how this whole thing was going to work and so on and so forth. So I totally understood what he was trying to do at that time. Which is a very different time than it is now. But yeah, he's been very successful. Congratulations to him and all that stuff. But yeah, there's quite a few fighters that were in and out of there at the time.
Okay. And what made you decide to get into coaching? What drew you to it?
Well, I played sports my whole life. I played baseball. I played Division I sports professionally, baseball and stuff. So I was always kind of part of a team. So when I got done playing baseball, I was kind of, I don't know, I just felt like I was missing something. And then when I got into law enforcement, they started to teach, some combatives, and I was like, man, this is pretty cool. And I had, like I said, friends that were fighting and training jiu-jitsu and stuff, and they had kept asking me, "Hey, you want to do this? You want to do this?" I'm like, no. But when I got into law enforcement, and I, like I said, started to do a little bit of combatives, it made more sense. and I got my butt kicked for years and years and years trying to learn all the different aspects of things. And but yeah, that's kind of how it kind of got in. I've always been a coach and participated in sports and things like that. And I've never was ever able to do actually MMA stuff. So I was trying to figure out, okay, how could I do some things that was still relatively safe but get into the sport. Not to go into it, but I only have one kidney, and I'm not able to do a lot of the contact type of things. So I figured, jiu-jitsu I might be able to do this. And like I said, I started to learn jiu-jitsu and learning the applications behind wrestling and Muay Thai and boxing, and it just kind of progressed. And like I said, my friend opened up a gym, and kind of all started back in '05 at Overcome MMA.
Let's talk about some of the fighters that are at MMA Gold. Of course, probably the most notable one is a fighter who we thought was going to be fighting this weekend at UFC 235, Aspen Ladd. I just wanted to know from your perspective, how did you find out she was off the card? Because Dana White is at the press conference. He just casually mentions like, yeah, that fight's not on. And we're like, what? Wait a second here. So how did that all come together from your perspective?
Yeah, it all happened just like you just heard it, kind of like that. I was in Brazil for Anthony Hernandez and Max Griffin.
That's right, yeah.
And I was sitting, me and the manager, Dave Hirschbein, we were sitting there, and actually Anthony and Max and everyone, kind of the whole crew that was out there for Brazil, we were sitting eating dinner. And Dave had gotten a text from a pretty notable media outlet saying, hey, what's wrong with Aspen? And he looks at me and he goes, hey, what's going on with Aspen? And I'm like, I don't know. She's back at home sparring. It's Thursday at about 5 o'clock. She's probably sparring right now. So I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, well, they're asking because Dana just said at the press conference that Aspen Ladd and Holly Holm, the fight's off. We're like, well, that's news to us. So that's how we found out. Just like you guys, we had no idea. He said Aspen signed the contract to fight Holly. I think it was 2 days after Christmas. So as soon as she got it, we signed the contract, sent it back. So we were never under any other impression other than we were fighting at UFC 235. But obviously, as we all know, that's not transpiring, which is what it is. It's business, I guess. And Aspen will fight again soon. You can't kind of give any of that information up.
For sure. Yeah, we got to wait till everything's signed, especially with what happened last time. Yeah, no, I can understand that. Was there ever a thought of trying to keep her on the card? Like, did you guys talk to the UFC about that just to get a different opponent? Or was the plan always to just, see what, I guess, just sort of figure things out?
There were some talks going back and forth, but they didn't really take place right away. It was about 8 or 9 days after we were told that it was off. And we had changed things relative to Aspen because we figured we weren't fighting. And what the other thing that came down is she ended up actually getting really sick and was on about 4 different medications that we had to declare to USADA and things. So it kind of happened at a weird time. We got removed from the card, and then a few days later she started getting really sick and had some difficulty with things and got put on about 4 different medications, I think, and then so she just recently got off of that. I think last Wednesday, I think she got off all that. So there was a little bit of talks, but from what we understand, the contract was never signed on Holly's end anyway. So it was kind of a moot point. I'm sure that they'll cross paths at some point down the line. At the end of the day, it's business. Things happen. Negotiations go back and forth. Sometimes negotiations go awry. But like I said, Aspen's pretty humble, pretty just kind of reserved. It is what it is with her. She was a little annoyed for about a day, and then she got over it. And she's looking forward to her next opponent and fight.
Okay, that's interesting. And just one more thing. I mean, obviously, it's very disappointing because now we're hearing Amanda is not going to fight until later in the year, and that seemed like that's what they were trying to do. Amanda Nunes, that is, trying to do Nunes and Holm because it's a fresh matchup. But I guess that's one of those things that's out of your control.
I think maybe they were trying to juggle several balls, I think, at one time, and I think it just became too much, and things, it just, for whatever reason, couldn't transpire.
One of your other fighters, Marion Reneau, is going to be fighting March 9th at UFC Wichita, and I know she's had a bit of a layoff, not on her end. I know the UFC, it's just been tough getting her a fight. How's she looking ahead of this matchup? Because, I think she's kind of being overlooked a little bit in this upcoming fight.
Yeah, Marion's very focused, very sharp right now. We just kind of finished up this past weekend, just kind of going over some of the plan, getting our reps in with what we expect. So yeah, she's more than ready. Marion's a very mentally tough, very, very strong woman. She will be her best come March 9th.
Okay. And what about the latest with Anthony Hernandez and Max Griffin? I know Max had a really close fight. I think a lot of people felt that could have gone the other way. What are your thoughts on that, and what's the future for the two of them?
Yeah, Max, at the end, he won. Bottom line is he beat Thiago Alves. Thiago even indicated that he knows he didn't win. Max looked great. He had no injuries coming from the fight, so my guess is Max will probably be back in within the next couple of months. Anthony, I think a little bit. Anthony and I spoke about it quite a bit and kind of analyzed everything over and over. At this point, we've kind of beaten a dead horse at this point, but I think he just got a little complacent. He was rushing himself a little bit too much. I think part of that played into the fact that he had just saw Max lose a decision that he should have never lost. And I think Anthony kind of had that feeling like, I have to knock this guy out, and was rushing himself a little bit too much, and just got a little bit complacent with his distance. And at this level, like I told him, there's no moment where you're safe ever until that fight's completely over. At this level, it's a game of inches, sometimes even less than that, and that's he got caught. It's something that I've never seen happen to Anthony. He's never really done some of those things, even in training or any of his previous fights. So it's a learning experience for him. I think he knows exactly what he did, and I don't see him ever making those mistakes again.
Jim, it was great chatting. I wish we had more time. We'll definitely catch up again, and it's great to hear that Aspen does have something lined up, because obviously that was very disappointing to hear. But in the meantime, where can people find information about MMA Gold? If there's anything you want to promote, anything like that, man, the floor is yours.
MMA Gold can be found at MMAGold.com, just on your normal, if you Google it, it'll pop up. Social media-wise, it's Jim West at Jim West Gold, 3131. Social media, as far as the team goes, is really not really a team social media goes, but I just want to thank all the coaches at MMA Gold, Mike Guy, our boxing coach, Jake Duangara, our Muay Thai coach, our strength conditioning coach, Doug Casebeer, Ryan Brown, our jiu-jitsu coach, our wrestling coaches, Alex Grunder, Justin Durham, kickboxing coaches, Sam Toomer, Nick Gonzalez, Norm Tavallero, our manager, Dave Hirschbein, and all the athletes at MMA Gold. Thank you very much.